Hello, everyone. I've got a classic urban legend to share with you today. The legend of Black Aggie has been a staple in Baltimore folklore for decades that's been shrouded in mystery since its inception. So get ready for an interesting look at it from the beginning and where it stands today. With that being said, let's get right into it. If you came of age in Baltimore, especially during the 50s and 60s, you've probably heard the talk about Druid Ridge Cemetery's most famous grave marker. Just about everyone knew about Black Aggie, the statue of a draped, melancholy, and mysterious woman seated at the Agnes family plot in the south-facing side of the cemetery in Pikesville. Word was her stony eyes turned red as darkness fell. Sit on her lap at midnight, and you would meet your own demise within 2 weeks. In those days, the cemetery was lightly guarded. Teens, often fueled by beer and bravado, traveled to Druid Ridge at night to test the rumor. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and the pinnacle of Baltimore urban legends for years. By 1967, she was gone. But where? The Black Aggie saga began near Lafayette Square, across from the White House, in 1885. Marion Clover Adams lived there. She was a celebrated socialite, hostess, and one of the country's earliest portrait photographers. At the time, though, she was thoroughly despondent about the death of her father. She unalived herself by drinking chemicals from her photography developing supplies. Her husband, Henry Adams, the great-grandson of President John Adams and the grandson of President John Quincy Adams, was grief-stricken. He commissioned one of the world's most celebrated sculptors, Augustus St. Gaudens, to create a gravesite memorial in Rock Creek Cemetery. The statue was never officially named, but was often referred to as Grief, or simply the Adams Memorial. The figure, a seated and draped woman, evoked a particular feeling of mystery and gloom, so much so, in fact, it became a popular tourist attraction, despite Adams attempting to shield the view with trees and shrubbery. He refused many requests to allow duplicates of the statue to be made. However, a sculptor named Edward L.A. Pausch managed to do so. Meanwhile, a man living in Baltimore at the time, named Felix Agnes, purchased a family plot in Druid Ridge Cemetery. Agnes had led an eclectic life. A native of France, he was a world traveler, veteran of several wars, including the American Civil War. He was a silver craftsman at Tiffany and Company. He was also a publisher for a Baltimore newspaper, and he purchased Pausch's copy of the Adams Memorial for the plot and built a pedestal similar to the original. Augustus St. Gaudens' widow was incensed, though Agnes insisted that he was the unwitting customer of an unscrupulous art dealer. The statue remained in Druid Ridge Cemetery. He and his wife Annie are buried in the plot, along with his mother. Soon after their deaths, the whispers around Baltimore evolved. Pay Aggie a visit after dark, look her in the eye, and be struck blind. Pregnant women were warned to stay far, far away. Sit in her lap at midnight, and death lurks around the corner. People visited anyway, almost nightly. It was a Baltimore rite of passage and often a fraternity initiation ritual. The nocturnal crowds, notoriety, and resulting vandalism were too much for Agnes's family descendants. They quietly donated the statue to the Smithsonian Institution in 1967. The museum had little interest in displaying her, though. She was ultimately placed in storage, unfortunately forgotten by her D.C. caretakers. However, not so much in Baltimore, where Aggie's legend never died away. In 1996, Shara Turjong, a Baltimore-based reporter, discovered that she had been quietly on display since 1987 in a somewhat out-of-the-way courtyard of the National Courts building. Ironically, the final location is on the east side of Lafayette Square, the same neighborhood where Marion Clover Adams unalived herself in 1885. To this day, people in Baltimore reminisce about their clandestine nights at Druid Ridge Cemetery, and the brave seek out her present location to keep the legend of Black Aggie alive.
And now it's time to see what's coming out today for our media partner, the Baltimore Banner.
Cody Baltilore is joining us now to talk about an urban legend you may have grown up hearing about in Baltimore, Black Aggie. Cody, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
We're good. I don't know about Black Aggie. Do you, Tim?
No, I'm actually not familiar.
And we grew up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also did not grow up here. I grew up a little bit further west in Frederick, and I didn't hear about Black Aggie until I moved here. But that is the name given to a statue that used to sit in Druid Ridge Cemetery, and depending on who you ask, she's haunted. She either wanders the graveyard, or she'll appear in your mirror, or it's kind of spooky.
I I love it.
I know. And so how did the tale of the Black Aggie get started?
You know, what's interesting is that nobody is totally sure. It's one of those like classic playground urban legends, I think. While we were researching her, we saw, plenty of stories where, oh, the older sisters would gather their younger siblings in a circle and try to scare them because, she's this really spooky looking statue with a cowl over, and she sits like this and stares in the cemetery, and it's spooky, right? And the tale evolved. She kind of combined with the legend of Bloody Mary, where if you spin around in your bathroom with the lights off, she'll appear in the mirror and scratch you. Or if you sit in her lap at midnight, she'll get you. But yeah, she's not in Baltimore anymore.
Oh, wow. So you can't really see her in person unless you travel, or can you at all?
Well, you can see her. You can see the statue in D.C. She was donated to the Smithsonian, who kind of gave it to the General Services Administration, and now she's just chilling in a courtyard in D.C. near Lafayette Square Park, where like people who work for the federal government have their lunch and just hang out in the shadow of this spooky legend. And if you don't feel like driving down or getting in the train to DC, you could always, go in your bathroom, close the door, turn the lights off, and try saying her name 3 times to see if she appears.
Like Beetlejuice.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
She can stay right where she
I'm
is.
not about to do that.
None of us are.
Thank you so much, Cody, though. We appreciate it.
I remember hearing the legend of Black Aggie when I was a kid. My next door neighbor at the time introduced me to the story. I consider her a grandmother, even though we aren't related by blood. We were just that close. Our houses were 2 connected row homes, and our back porches butted up right next to each other, where we would sit at night and talk for hours. She was the first person in my life to introduce me to Baltimore folklore. It was all fascinating to me. I miss her very much and miss those nights all the same. Black Aggie is one of those local legends that seems to stand the test of time. Thank you all for listening, and as usual, if you're a fan of urban legends, folklore, unsolved mysteries, cold cases, and all things mysterious, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel.